So today we're talking about the pros and cons of working in email marketing. When I started in marketing for the first part of my career, I was a more general marketer. And honestly, for me personally, I felt that by spreading myself thin across a bunch of different parts of marketing, like influencer marketing, meta ads, email marketing, branding, everything, I felt like I was a jack of all trades, but truly a master of none. I knew that when I wanted to go off on my own, I wanted to specialize on one thing specifically and be an expert at that channel. I really wanted to hone in on one thing and one thing alone. And for me, that was lifecycle marketing, aka email marketing, SMS marketing, and in some cases, conversion rate optimization on websites. But the majority of what I do is email and SMS, so we'll kind of stick to that for this video. So why did I want to go with lifecycle marketing? Well, I find for me that email marketing is the most intimate channel you have with the consumer. It's the place where you can go the most in-depth with your storytelling and create really strong bonds with your customers. And that was the best decision I could have ever made because email marketing honestly has changed my entire life. It's allowed me to work remotely, start my own consulting business. I have this amazing opportunity with the agency I've spoken about in New York that I've built an entire department for. And honestly, it's helped me make more money than I ever thought I could at just, working in-house at a normal company. I'm being joined by my dog right now, so he's going to be helping me out with this video. But does this mean everybody's going to love working in email marketing? No, because while specialization can be incredibly powerful, there's obviously downsides like there are to anything. In this video, I want to talk about the real pros and cons of working in email marketing and give some of my thoughts so that you can figure out if it's right for you. One of the biggest questions I get from people trying to break into marketing is, should I specialize in email marketing or should I stick to more general marketing? And to be honest, there's no one specific answer to that. For me, the answer was to niche down and pursue email marketing. But for other people, they could find more success with general marketing. And I think understanding the trade-offs can help you make the best decision for you. So I'm going to get straight into the pros first. Pro number one, it's easier to become known for something. The internet is crowded. Thousands of people are branding themselves as marketers. Thousands of people are branding themselves as consultants, and thousands of people are branding themselves as freelancers. But when you become the email person or brand yourself as the lifecycle marketing expert, things become much clearer. People understand what you do immediately. So referrals become easier, and it becomes easier to find clients who are primed to hire you, because if you're branding yourself as an email marketer and they are searching for one, they've already identified that that is one channel within their business that they need a lot of help with. So when you are starting maybe an Upwork profile or just a website with your services, instead of saying, I do marketing, you can say, I help e-commerce brands boost their direct-to-consumer revenue through email marketing and SMS. That's much more memorable. And honestly, I think it's one of the reasons that my career was able to accelerate as fast as it did, because people knew immediately where they could kind of fit me. Pro number two, you get better faster. One thing I underestimated about specialization before I got into it is how much repetition speeds up your learning. When you're working across SEO, paid ads, influencer marketing, you're spread across so many different things. Your attention is kind of just constantly moving across different areas. But when you're spending years inside of one discipline, you start seeing patterns. You encounter the same problems repeatedly and you learn what works. You learn what doesn't work, and you're always up to date on kind of the new tools and best AI practices. You stop relying on theory and you start relying on experience. What do I always say in my videos? Competence builds confidence. When I started in this field, I was fascinated by it and I knew I enjoyed it. But now I know for a fact that I'm one of the best life cycle marketers that I know. I really do feel like I am an incredibly smart email, SMS marketer. So when I'm pitching my services, I'm making promises that I know I can deliver on. And that sort of confidence is infectious, which kind of brings me to my next point, pro number three. It's easier to sell. This is probably the biggest business advantage, and it's kind of like point number one, but a little different. In this kind of modern age, you're cheaper than a full-time employee. And as long as you can prove the effectiveness and the, return on investment of your specific channel, people will keep you around. And I guess another sort of example of this would be, if I need heart surgery, I don't really want to go to a surgeon who does a bunch of different surgeries all day and, feels proficient in that. I would rather go to the heart surgeon who does my specific procedure all the time. And clients often feel the same way. A company looking to improve their email marketing is much more likely to hire a specialist who solely works in email and SMS marketing rather than a general marketer who can do email and SMS. Specialization creates trust, and trust creates easier selling. And now our fourth and final pro that I want to touch on. Email marketing has strong economics. One of the reasons I've stayed in email marketing is that the economics are great and the results are very easily measurable. Email performance is measurable. Revenue from email and SMS, it's all measurable. Metrics apart from revenue, like open rates, click-through rates, unsubscribe rates, all of that, very, very easily measurable. A lot of marketing channels are actually pretty difficult to directly tie to specific revenue. But email marketing is not. Just remember that whenever I say email, I mean like email and SMS. You know, I email is the most common, but I do work in SMS all the time. And so yeah, when I say email or life cycle, I'm generally meaning email, SMS, all of that. You know, you can frequently point to a specific email campaign or flow and say, this generated this amount of revenue for you. It makes it easier for clients to justify budgets. And when clients can clearly see the value you're providing, it's much easier to build a career around that. You know, if I'm charging a client $5,000 a month, but I'm generating them $50,000 a month or $100,000 a month, obviously my cost is justified. And I'll add this as a little extra pro sort of side note is that I genuinely feel like email and SMS and all that, I feel like it's one of the most interesting and dynamic parts of marketing to work in. It's endlessly fascinating, but again, that's a subjective take. So, you know, take from that what you will. But now I do have to get into the other side of things because there is always another side, and I do have to inform you of the things I can think of just so that you're properly informed as you're kind of getting into this. Specialization isn't all upside, and so there are very real downsides we have to talk about. Con number one, you could get bored. Not me. I don't get bored of this personally, but it is a real thing that you can get bored with. Again, you're different than me. We're all different, but I personally don't get bored of it, but it is a very real thing that you could get bored of. Why? Well, I've built hundreds of email campaigns. I've built hundreds of welcome flows, abandoned cart flows, abandoned browse flows, post-purchase flows. At a certain point, it might feel like there's not a whole lot of new campaigns or flows that you can keep creating. Sometimes the challenge becomes finding new ways to be creative within a system that you've, repeated time and time again. If you're someone who craves constant novelty, specialization could potentially feel restrictive. But what I would say is that while I do work under the umbrella of kind of like higher price point wellness and fashion products, I do think that with at least my work, all the different brands I work for feel so specific and different and exciting to me that I don't really find that it's too repetitive personally. The actual brands themselves allow me a lot of ways to kind of differentiate. So while my processes might not be super unique, the way it relates to each brand is quite unique. So I know that con number one was supposed to be a con, and I've kind of turned it into not a con because for me, like I said, it doesn't really apply, but I do have to just say that. Anyway, moving on to con number two. Con number two, you risk putting yourself in a box. When people know you as the email person, it's great for selling yourself within that niche. However, there is a real possibility that you might wake up one day and want to pursue more general marketing, and you've just spent 5 years only doing life cycle marketing, and people might not be as willing to hire you for a general marketing role because you've really just been working in one sort of avenue for the last few years. Sometimes your expertise can become your identity, and identities can be pretty hard to undo. But I do have to say that I strongly believe that you can accomplish anything you put your mind to. And so if in the future you want to change and completely redirect your profession, you can do that later. And that's maybe a tomorrow problem. It is something to think about that you are putting yourself in a box, but are we ever truly in a box? I don't know. So again, it's not a complete con. All right, con number three, industries change. No marketing channel stays exactly the same forever. 10 years ago, social media marketing looked completely different. 5 years ago, email marketing looked completely different. 5 years from now, who knows? And there is the elephant in the room. AI. Right now, I love AI and I use it to help me with certain things throughout my day, and it definitely does cut down on time with some of the stuff that I work on. I cannot really rely on it at this point in my business. I mean, it's a great tool, but there's so much that it's not kind of like sophisticated enough with in terms of my day-to-day work. However, this is something that really could accelerate over the next few years and take my job. I don't know. Right now, I'm just trying to stay ahead of all the new AI features and tools and make sure that I'm bringing them into my work, but also not trying to get too scared about the future because, to be honest, none of us really know right now what can happen with AI and our jobs and all of that. But zooming back out to the initial point, this con number 3 saying industries change, if your entire career depends on one specific skill, you are kind of taking a risk. Now, I don't think email marketing is disappearing anytime soon, but as a specialist, you do kind of have to keep up on industry trends and where things are going, or you get left behind. Now, con number 4. You could miss seeing the bigger picture. One thing I miss about my days as a general marketer was that I was easily exposed to all parts of the business all the time. You know, I constantly knew what was happening with operations, with product, with customer service queries, with events. All of that is extremely valuable to know. Specialists sometimes can get so focused on their own specific channel they forget they're part of an entire system. And some of the biggest breakthroughs for a brand don't happen within channels, but across them. So part of my work as a specialist is constantly asking questions. I want to stay on top of cross-team calendars, of feedback, on customer insights, on product development, things like that. I'm constantly making sure that I am having those cross-channel conversations. But it's not something that happens naturally, and nobody's going to seek you out to have those conversations usually. So you do have to do that yourself. So in conclusion, there are obviously so many other pros and cons that I could get into, but kind of looking at a high level breakdown, these are the first things that I would mention. For me, specializing in email marketing, I said this at the start, but it's one of the best things I've ever done. It's helped me create my business. It's helped me create more money for myself. It's given me so much confidence in my own skills. And, it's given me a very clear professional identity. This works for me, but the key part of that sentence is that it works for me. Does it work for you? What parts of this felt like they really resonated with you? And were there certain things that made you kind of like jerk away? Those are things that are really important to focus on and think about as you start to possibly pursue this. If you're looking for a skill that's in demand, measurable, relatively accessible to learn, and can lead to a great career, then absolutely, I think that email marketing is great for you. But what I really try and get across in this channel is self-knowledge, and not just personal growth, but personal peace. Life is all about trial and error, and you might try 10 different niches before landing on the one that fits you best. But as long as you're putting in the work and relentlessly trying to find the career path that best fits you, you're bound to get there eventually. Thank you guys so much for watching. That is all for today. I hope this was helpful, and I'm so stoked to see you in my next video. Bye, guys.